Germany becomes the latest European country to beef up its border security in a bid to curb illegal entries along the Balkan route. Italy sets up its first centre for migrants from so-called safe countries in a bid to accelerate the process of asylum claims. Defying expectations. A new forecast predicts Russia's economy to grow this year in spite of Western sanctions. The foundations of the Schengen Treaty crumbling at the heart of Europe. Germany has become the latest country to beef up its border controls. Berlin says it has increased security along the borders with Poland and the Czech Republic to contain a sharp rise in illegal entries and asylum applications.
Wir müssen das grausame Geschäft der Schleuser unbedingt stoppen, denn die setzen mit maximalem Profit Menschenleben aufs Spiel. Deshalb nimmt die Bundespolizei ab sofort zusätzliche, flexible Schwerpunktkontrollen an den Schleuserrouten an den Grenzen zu Polen und Tschechien vor.
The announcement came a day after police raids in Germany found more than 100 Syrian citizens inside apartments searched in connection with a smuggling ring. On Tuesday, Poland also tightened its borders with Slovakia, and on Wednesday, Slovenia followed suit along its southern border with Croatia. Germany's Interior Ministry says about a quarter of all migrants who reach Germany are smuggled in across the Mediterranean Sea and the Balkans route. Italy has set up its first centre for asylum seekers deemed to have come from so-called safe countries. The Italian government hopes the facility in the Sicilian port of Pozzallo will accelerate the process of asylum claims. It will house people who can't claim refugee status as they've arrived from countries not considered to be dangerous. It comes as Italy struggles to cope with severe overcrowding at its migrant centre on Lampedusa Island. Authorities have begun moving some to other locations after a recent surge in arrivals. The extent of the problem was highlighted earlier this month when some migrants broke out of the centre because of a lack of space and essential provisions. In an effort to reduce numbers arriving, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's cabinet is implementing measures against young adults posing as unaccompanied minors in order to claim state protection. Despite the impact of Western sanctions, Russia's economy is now forecast to grow this year instead of shrink, as was previously predicted. That's the view of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development in a statement to the AFP news agency. In May, the bank saw Russia's GDP shrinking by 1.5%. It now says it will actually grow by the same figure. The EBRD, which was founded to help ex-Soviet countries adapt to free markets, says Russia's revenues have been boosted by high oil prices and new export opportunities with China, India and Central Asia. It had expected an oil price cap as part of sanctions to have a greater negative impact. Russia has sought to strengthen trade links with China, India and other non-aligned nations to shore up its sanctions-hit economy. Nevertheless, the institution believes this won't be enough to offset a cooling of the Russian economy in 2024.
The general leading Ukraine's counteroffensive along the southern front line, Alexander Tarnavsky, promised, quote, good news from the front. But what is happening there? The Institute for the Study of War says the tactical situation in Verbovo remains unclear as Ukrainian forces continue offensive operations in western Zaporizhia region. The Ukrainian General Staff reported that Ukrainian forces continued offensive operations in the Melitopol direction. A Kremlin-affiliated Mill blogger claimed that Ukrainian forces reached the northern outskirts of Novoprokopivka. There it is, about 13 kilometers south of Orikhiv. Russian sources still have not directly addressed a claim from a source reportedly affiliated with the Russian airborne forces that Ukrainian forces control half of Verbovo. There it is, about 18 kilometers south of Orikhiv. The Institute for the Study of War has not observed evidence of such a Ukrainian advance. Instead, the think tank says likely degraded elements of Russia's 42nd Motorized Rifle Division are increasingly counterattacking near Novoprokopivka, suggesting that Ukrainian counteroffensive operations may have degraded relatively more elite Russian airborne elements that were responsible for counterattacking in the area. Elements of the 42nd Motorized Rifle Division are reportedly deployed as far back as Tokmak. There it is, which is about 20 kilometers away from Novoprokopivka, continuing to suggest that Russian command has not manned the multi-echelon defense in southern Ukraine in depth.
Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny has lost his appeal against a 19-year sentence added to his existing jail term. It was imposed in August after he was convicted on 6 charges related to alleged extremist activity, which he denies. The 19-year sentence is on top of 11.5 years that he's already serving for fraud and other charges. Navalny is one of the most visible opponents of the Russian regime, which has incarcerated him since his return in 2021 after nearly dying in a poisoning attempt.
Internet giant Amazon's being sued by the Federal Trade Commission in 17 states over allegations it inflates online prices and overcharges sellers. The lawsuit's the result of a year-long investigation into the company's businesses and one of the most significant legal challenges brought against it in its nearly 30-year history. Seattle-based Amazon said the FTC is wrong on the facts and the law and had departed from its role of protecting consumers and competition.
British regulators have approved new oil and gas drilling at a site in the North Sea, a move environmentalists say will hurt the country's bid to meet its climate goals. Authorities angered climate activists by giving permission to the Rosebank field development plan, claiming drilling will create jobs and bolster the UK's energy security. One of the largest untapped deposits in UK waters, Rosebank holds an estimated 350 million barrels of oil. Critics say it's the latest climate U-turn by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservative government.
4 girls and 2 boys aged between 11 and 24 from Portugal have their first day of hearings at the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg on Wednesday, as part of a case against 32 European states. The Agostinho and others case accuses these governments of failing to tackle the climate crisis. The motivation stems from the 2017 wildfires in Portugal, which claimed more than 100 lives, with the case filed in September 2020. They say they're already feeling the effects in their daily lives and also fear for their futures.
Como eu disse, com os fogos, são fogos que são muito perto da zona onde eu vivo, fogos que já me puseram a minha vida em risco, a vida das minhas irmãs, dias de escola que foram perdidos por causa de excesso de fumo no ar, as minhas doenças respiratórias não têm vindo a melhorar propriamente.
We're talking about their right to individual private life, family life, and also because they're young, their future is at stake. So they experience the climate harms for a much greater period of time. Therefore, we're arguing they're discriminated against. And the court also asked us to deal with questions of inhumane treatment and degrading treatment by virtue of the mental anguish that and traumatization that the climate crisis will create for them.
Their legal team expects a victory that would be equivalent to what it describes as a legally binding regional treaty, compelling all 32 countries to rapidly accelerate their climate action. It's a view shared by the Council of Europe's Commissioner for Human Rights.
I think the time is right that we move from words to deeds, because as we know, there are numerous resolutions, numerous conventions, wonderful words on paper, but the action is missing.
The legal argument of the governments in question says that the case has no supporting evidence to claim that the plaintiffs are in more danger than the rest of the Portuguese population. They say that they're already undertaking their mitigation commitments within the 2015 Paris Climate Accords.
They are Claudia, Katerina, Martine, Uma equipe de 86 advogados representa os 32 governos. Os países em causa são os 27 da União Europeia e ainda Noruega, Suíça, Reino Unido, Turquia e Rússia. Um porta-voz dessa equipa disse à Euronews que não queriam fazer comentários nesta fase do processo. Isabel Marques da Silva, em Estrasburgo.
Electric scooters are everywhere in Prague. There are thousands of them. Nobody knows the exact number. Their boom started right after the COVID pandemic, when tourists from all over the world returned. And while they're designed as an easy, eco-friendly mode of transport, in the wrong hands they can be a menace.
Nejčastějšími přestupky, kterých se jezdci na koloběžkách dopouštějí, je jízda po chodníku, jízda přes přechod proti směru, neznají pravidla silničního provozu a bohužel často jezdí také pod vlivem alkoholu.
City police officers had dealt with 13,000 scooter-related offences by August, twice as many as in the whole of 2022. Over 4,000 people were fined and accidents and injuries are on the rise. Managers of Prague's historic quarter wants to ban scooters as they did Segways 7 years ago, but talks with the mayor and police are still taking place.
Zákon, který by nám umožnil to zakázat.
Scooters can be left on the sidewalk right in front of the city hall without any problems.
Tak optimální by bylo, kdyby města měly pravomoc říct si, teda, co na svém území reálně chtějí a co nechtějí, a moc to udělat nějakým jednoduchým, transparentním úkonem.
Modern technologies again outstripped legislation, and negotiations are ongoing between the municipality and the Ministry of Transport on how best to regulate the situation before next season.
Pražští radní tedy zatím ještě hledají usilovně nějaké řešení, které by zamezilo a zabránilo nekontrolovanému parkování koloběžek na silnicích a hlavně chodnících hlavního města. Jiří Skácel, Euronews, Praha.